So today on episode 4, I want to tackle the topic of infertility, IVF, IUI, and when you have a struggle to have children in the second half of your life. So that's what I want to talk about today. My journey started probably a little bit different than others. I know a lot of people do IVF for so many different reasons. But for me, it was a decision I made after my second child. So I was able to have kids in my 20s at 2002 and 2003. I had 2 healthy sons. They were in intensive care for a couple weeks. That's a whole nother episode. But on this episode, I want to talk about how I went in to get my tubes tied after my second child. I was 26. Birth control made me sick, didn't really work for me. So I went in to get my tubes tied. I figured that was the best option for me. At the time I went in to get my tubes tied, there was a new procedure out called a Sure. It's where they put the titanium coils up in your fallopian tubes and it scars around so nothing can get in and out. So that was sold to me as, hey, it's an outpatient procedure, in and out in 15 minutes, no downtime. That sounded great. And the severity of it, I didn't really understand at the time. They said they only had 5 years of research. It worked for some people, didn't for others. It just didn't sound permanent when the doctor was asking me. And they also made you go through counseling. But the question he asked was, if you lost one of your children, would you want to have more and replace? And of course, I wouldn't want to have more and replace. So, I mean, thinking back, he should have asked me different questions. Probably would have triggered me to think different. Like, hey, if you do get divorced from your current husband and meet the man of your dreams and want to start a family, this is more of a permanent option. So you should think about it. But those kind of things weren't told to me. It was, would you have more kids if your kids died? And I said no. So I passed. And at 26, I was able to have a Sure. At the time, I had no idea the effect that one decision was going to have on the rest of my life and how that one decision changed trajectories of my life that now looking back, I'm grateful for. But at the time, when we went into IVF, I was healthy, no reasons I wouldn't be able to get pregnant on IVF. None of the doctors even gave us any inkling that it wouldn't be successful, to be honest with you. I got 20 embryos, 13 of them were healthy and genetically okay. We tested them. I had 11 girls and 2 boys. The first time we started, we went in with nothing but we thought it was going to happen. Had names picked out. It was Hope for the girl and Garen Jr. for the boy. And when it didn't happen, when we went in that room and they said, you're not pregnant, I mean, that was a blow to both of us. We weren't expecting. And it took us 2.5 years to try again. We had embryos ready to go, but that blow, like to both of us, was devastating. So we waited 2.5 years and we did a frozen embryo transfer. This time we did 1 boy and 2 girls. We thought, let's put 3 in. 2 didn't work. Let's try 3. I mean, we thought this time it would work. Like the first time was a fluke. This time's going to work. You try and go into it with enjoying it because they said, hey, if it works, this is your journey. So you don't want to look back and have not enjoyed the journey because you were so stressed out. And that's so much easier said than done. You try so hard to not think of the outcome and not worry, but I mean, it's impossible. There's no way. And the way we did it is we stopped sharing our journey with others because it made it easier. The disappointment was less when you didn't have to share it with, your community or your family or everyone who's praying and hoping it happens for you guys. So that didn't work. And when that didn't work, I mean, I have a strong mindset and I was older at the time. I think I was 33 the first time we tried it, and then 36 the second, and it just kept going. So, because the only reason for me why we had to do IVF is because I didn't have any fallopian tubes that were open because I had the titanium coils in there. So What I did is I was VA because I was in the military. So I went to the VA and I got them to approve at UCLA Medical Center. I got a reversal. I was the very first case of someone getting the Assure taken out of their fallopian tubes, not only getting them taken out, because a lot of people get them taken out, but I got them taken out and my fallopian tubes put back intact so I can try and get pregnant naturally. So that was a big deal to get VA to do that for me. It was a big surgery too. It's like a C-section. So I got cut all the way through so they could do that. And after I did that, I actually got pregnant naturally 3 times within the year after I had that surgery, but I miscarried all 3 of those times. And they couldn't understand why I was miscarrying. And anyone that goes through IVF, you understand there's not a lot of answers. Sometimes it's, we don't know, just try again. And we used to always say, this is like taking like 40 grand and going to Vegas, putting it on red or black and just going for it. It's a scary thing. So those 3 miscarriages, the only answer they can give me is from the surgery of fixing my tubes. One of the tubes was damaged. So it's like secreting some kind of liquid, cyclic or something. I can't remember the name, but that liquid will get into your uterus and cause a miscarriage. They weren't sure if that was the reason, but that's the only thing they could think of. So, of course, I had the surgery to have one of my tubes removed, and we were hoping that was the answer. After that happened, I actually went through a couple IUI procedures because those are way cheaper. And since I had a tube that was working now, that was an option for me. So I did IUI a few times. It was successful once and then miscarried it. And I ended up having to have a shot to stop that one. There was another pregnancy where I ended up having ectopic pregnancy, which resulted in me going into the emergency room and having emergency surgery. When I had that surgery, I remember talking to the doctor before I went in, begging him, you don't understand what I've been through to try and save one of my tubes. So whatever you do, please try and save my tube when you're doing my ectopic pregnancy, because it wasn't even that much earlier that I had that other tube removed. When I woke up from surgery, I could tell right away just from the look at the doctor's face that he had to take my other tube out. So now I'm in the boat that other people are in, where I don't have any other options. My only option was IVF. I still had some embryos left from the first retrieval we did. So we did a couple more, put twins in again, and they didn't work. I then tried 2 more rounds of egg retrieval back to back. So I had some eggs that resulted in 4 female embryos. All of them didn't work. I think it was my second to last try, I got a positive pregnancy test. And then I went in for the heartbeat at 7 weeks and there was no heartbeat. And then I had to have a D&C. So I actually wrote down what I had to do just so I could summarize it. So I had 4 natural pregnancies resulting in 3 miscarriages. And one of those was an ectopic pregnancy that resulted in emergency surgery. I had 4 IUI procedures with 1 resulting in pregnancy, but then I miscarried. I had 2 IVF cycles and 4 frozen embryo transfers and 2 additional egg retrievals, a total of 13 healthy embryos, 11 girls and 2 boys. We placed them in my uterus on 6 separate occasions, once triplets, 4 times as twins, and 1 as a singleton, and then 1 didn't survive thawing. With only 1 of the girl embryos resulting in pregnancy, and at 7 weeks, there was no heartbeat, and I had to have a D&C in November 2016. So my journey to have kids in my second marriage was unsuccessful. I would read all these stories for people saying, keep going. It worked on my 7th time. It worked on my 8th time. And I probably would have went until it worked. But it was my husband at the time who I just don't think he could take the disappointment anymore. And he sat down with me and said, I just don't think having kids is our journey together. Maybe our journey is starting Medcare and helping others. And maybe that's our journey. And it was hard to accept that because, again, the journey takes 2 people. And if one wants to stop, then I have to stop. So to come to terms that I wouldn't be having my little girl, or I wouldn't be having this family that we dreamed of, was hard to deal with. But we decided to focus on Medcare and our business. And I think that's why when I lost my business recently, it was so devastating to me, because to me, that was my child from my 2nd marriage. So infertility is a hard journey. I didn't share my journey with a lot of people because it was just such a hard journey for us that we didn't want to drag anyone else on it with us. But I'm following a couple of females right now who are sharing their journey. And I am so proud that people are strong enough to do that, because that's a journey that I don't know if I could have shared while going through it. As a woman, not being able to have the children you want to have, no matter if you already have a child. Some people go through this and they never even have one child. But the pain isn't any easier for those females that already have a child. Because when you dream of your family and how many kids you want, that's the dream you have for yourself. And any dream that you can't accomplish is hard to accept. And the journey is hard because my next step in my journey would have been surrogacy. And that was something that on a whole nother level, I didn't know how I would be able to emotionally handle that. So my ex now making the decision to get off that roller coaster was probably a really good decision for us. But looking back at it, I think it should have been a different conversation. I think it should have been a conversation like he still wanted kids. But the journey with me on trying to have those kids, that's what he didn't want anymore. Because now looking back, I think that was probably the beginning of the end of my marriage. And I didn't see it at the time. I used to say, I had 2 little kids when we got together. We met when they were 6 months and almost 2. And I used to always say through this, I'm like, maybe that's why we ended up getting together, because maybe he couldn't have the kids and God still wanted him to be a father. So he got to raise my 2 kids with me. And he was a great dad to them. So I never tried to dissect my feelings in the time. It was 9 years of being sad for a day and going to the next step. I gave myself 24 hours to feel sorry for myself. And then I had to, what's the next step? What's the next plan? What do I have to do next? Because there isn't a lot of time to waste when you start later in life to have kids. And that's another thing. I had kids. I thought I waited. I waited till I was 25 and 26. A lot of kids have little kids at 20, 21. So when I waited that long, I got pregnant within 30 days of trying. So never in my life did I think having kids later on would even be a struggle, because the reason why I was doing IVF is because of a decision I made. And that also was a struggle. I don't want people to feel sorry for you, but some people, well, you did it to yourself. You decided to do it. Sure, that's the reason why you have to go through this, which is true. But it doesn't make it any easier to go through because it was because of a decision I made. Now that I live more with faith, during that time, I don't even know if I prayed about it, which if I did, I feel like it might have been an easy journey. Because now that I went back to God, I have faith, I look at it as a bigger picture, that my life was already planned out. and that all of this was supposed to happen for a purpose to make me into the person that I'm becoming right now. And when I look at it that way, it's a lot less depressing and more of like just a step in my journey. But at the time, I was devastated. I didn't understand why this was happening to me. Like so many people, homeless people, people on crack, like they get pregnant, no problem. Yet me who was trying so hard, who it cost so much money, so much effort, it just wasn't working for. It's like, do you think, is it my karma? Did I do something to deserve this? Like, why isn't this happening for me? And with all those questions, I never got an answer. But now I just signed my divorce papers January 15th, only a few days ago. And I think if I was going through what I went through the last 4 years with little kids while I'm trying to figure out my mental health, my emotional state, that wouldn't have been good for me or those kids. And I give kudos to all the women who don't have that option and they have little kids and are going through divorce and stuff like that. You're stronger than you think and you'll make it through. But I just want to share my story on fertility. I never shared it when I was going through it, but I see a lot of people waiting in life to have children. And then it's becoming harder for them to have children because it is harder when you're older. It's just the facts. You want it to be an easy time having kids, have them in your 20s. It's easy. It really is. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to take to have them, which is okay. Most of the people I went to school with have little kids. It's crazy. Like most of them waited till their late 30s, early 40s to have kids. It was just what they did. And I wanted to do that too. I thought, Jam, it's going to be so nice having kids in the second half of my life where I'm more settled. I can enjoy it. I remember having 2 little kids when I was in the military, and it was like a checklist. Everything I had to get done that day before my next day. I don't really remember enjoying the moments as much as I wish I did. I just remember trying to keep them alive, safe, and get through my day. So I was excited about having kids in my 40s. Unfortunately, that didn't happen for me. Don't have little kids. I have my son just turned 23 2 days ago, actually. That's my oldest, and my other's 22. So I want women to start sharing their journey. There's so many people going through issues with getting pregnant. And it's something that people, I guess, are embarrassed to talk about, or it's just so hard to talk about in the moment. And it also is hard for people to support you. I mean, you want to be so happy for your friends and everyone when they're having kids, but I couldn't even go to baby showers. Eventually, people stopped inviting me to their baby showers because, I wanted to go, but I hadn't emotionally processed everything. The problem I have is I have a really strong mindset and I just power through and I keep going. But I never have processed everything, which made it hard for me to go through life because I just had all my feelings just like stuck there. And at any time, they could explode. And I didn't want to be at a baby shower in tears. That's supposed to be a happy occasion. So I just wouldn't go. And that's how I lived like 5 years of my life during this journey. So I missed out on a lot of celebrations and stuff because of my mental state. And my mental state was, I just didn't deal with anything. And this was one of those journeys where mindset isn't enough. Like you could be very strong, but you got to deal with the emotions, or it's something that's going to be stuck. And then the next major things that happen in your life are going to destroy you. And that's kind of what happened to me on the journey after infertility. So I just want to let you guys know you're not alone. So many people go through this for so many reasons. And the reason why they go through this shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter your reason why you're going through it. The point is you're going through it. And it's a hard journey. And there are women out here that are going through the same thing that understand. I know there's a lot of support groups out there. I was a part of a lot of them on social when I was going through it. I mean, it's nice to have a friend that went through it that understands. I didn't have that at the time. So I want to be that friend for you guys. You guys need support or have questions or anything going through this. I've been through so much. Wouldn't wish what I went through on anybody. And my journey is sad because it didn't end with what I was hoping it ended with in the family part of it. But I'm happy with the 2 children I did have. They're healthy. I love them to death. And I guess that was supposed to be my family. I wasn't supposed to have more. And I look at this as this was God's path for me. And he saw what was coming in a decade. And he thought, this lady does not need to have more kids. She does not need to have kids with her current husband. So he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that didn't happen. And it didn't. And I am happy where I am right now. And I thank God for knowing what I needed more than I did. So I want to leave you with that. You're not alone.